and welcome to season 2, episode 10 of the Big at the Back podcast. It's been a while, so I am here. My name's Tom. I'm joined with the ever intimidating Matthew Hibbigans.
I was wondering what the hell was going to come out of your mouth.
I was going to go really harsh, but then thought, no, I'll just go switch it to a weird side. No. Anyway, how are you?
I'm pretty sure I could see the cogs turning in your head, but I'm all right, thanks. Yeah, it has been quite a while, hasn't it? It feels like so much has happened in the last couple of weeks as well since we last recorded. But the more things change, the more they stay the same. Since we last recorded, obviously, there's been VAR dramas. Chelsea have sacked a manager. That feels like it happens all the time. And then the Queen died and the whole round of fixtures got postponed. That happens every year as well. So
yeah, it's exactly the same as what happens every single year. I think we should have been expecting this. But
anyway, how was before we get cracking on, how was your trip to America?
Yeah, my first time over in the States. Went with work for a conference in San Fran. It was really, really good, actually. Really liked it over there. Had a great time. Probably a bit too much drinking for a work trip, but what can you
That's the best part of a work trip, isn't it? Drinking on the company's dime.
It's also the only time in my life I've ever managed to sleep on a plane. Partially because I was so hungover from being up all night the day before that I just managed to just completely go off on the aeroplane. But it got to the stage where, when you're completely upright in the seat, because I was only flying economy, completely upright in the seat, fell asleep, woken up an hour later or so, and just felt the drool dripping down my chin. It's like, oh God, I've been doing this in public.
That's when you know it's a good sleep, though. When I went to India with work, I was out all day the day before a Cricket World Cup match. And I was out for that night. I got home packed, and then I had a cab at 4:00 in the morning to get to Heathrow. So that was a real struggle. But my saving grace was I had business class and I had a bed and I just slept for like 5 hours.
I'm so jealous. So I want to start a new Big at the Back tradition. So before we jump into FPL, you and I, you don't have to do it this week, but it's going to be moving forward because I've only just thought of it on the spot. You and I can tell our favourite dad joke of the week.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
Oh God, go on then. We'll take it in turns, so we'll do it 1 week each.
Okay. I'm really scared of my calendar. Its days are numbered.
God's sake. Yeah. That's not even a good one.
I know. I've improvised it all on the spot here. We can definitely do better. So let's look at what we can do moving forward. I mean, I don't trust the stairs. They're always up to something. That's slightly better. I'm happy with that. I'm proud of that one. That can stick.
Right.
Cool. So people are definitely tuning in for our personalities, as we know by now. So thank you to the people still here. But we are going to talk about fantasy football. So it seems like forever ago. We're not going to bother going over old fixtures because they were so long ago. What we are going to do, though, is look at the Big at the Back league. So we've got Josh Bell in first with Isaac at FPL. Nice name. Then Frank from my work in second with the Pussycat Balls. Then Jimmy Verrier, who was leading the charge, coming up in third with Watt and Edison. I'm down in sixth with 385 points, and you're in eighth with 378. So all still to play for. How are you feeling about the season so far?
Not too bad, all things considering. Like, I have been, bearing in mind, I've been without Salah since day one, which you said I was mad for, but I'm only 7 points behind you. And I feel like it has been a viable strategy so far this season. And obviously we've seen price drops for him over the last week, which is something we almost thought we'd never see. There's been people rushing to transfer him out. Obviously, we've got Liverpool blanking this week coming up. So yeah, it's interesting to see how many people are going to try and go without him going forward. I think, it's definitely a viable strategy. More and more people will lean towards it, but that inevitably will hurt even more when he does have a big haul. But I think you can make those points up elsewhere this season. There's other midfielders that are performing, and that money can be used elsewhere. One you likes of, if if you haven't got Haaland in at this point, what are you even doing? I know there's rotation risks, but the guy's a machine. So I think in general, it's not been a bad season. Could be better. I'm a little bit disappointed that I'm not up near that top because that tends to be where we both are. But obviously, it's been a bit of a strange season so far this season. I think there's been a lot of surprises. People haven't really been able to predict it as much, which has resulted in less template teams, which I think is better for the overall health of the game. What about you?
Yeah, similar position. So I've gone with Salah all season naturally, and I thought you were mad for not doing it. But considering that the captain's armband is more often than not going to be an Erling Haaland, I think no Salah is definitely a viable strategy, and he's been playing far further wide than we've seen in previous years. This isn't the same Salah that we had before, where he was playing across the front line himself with Mane and Firmino supporting him. So, yeah, I think it's definitely a viable strategy. He's still the top premium scorer in the game outside of Haaland, so worth noting that. But yeah, definitely a viable strategy going without him. Like you, we normally see ourselves around the top of most of our mini leagues by game week 8 or so. I'm actually finding it quite refreshing. The fact that the template is a bit more skewed this year, and it makes the options and the differentials really, really good. The shining light for me for this year has definitely by far been Nick Pope in goal. We were talking about him at the beginning of the season. He was my standout pick for the player I wanted the most and thought could do really well. And we both had him all year, and he's been the best goalkeeper to have by far. People were talking about Sanchez for Brighton. For an extra 0.5 million or 0.6, whatever it is, you're going Pope all day, every day.
Yeah, and obviously the big thing to see with Brighton now is how they deal without Graham Potter, because we've sung his praises on this podcast. Jamie, my co-host on the Pretty Bubbles podcast, sings his praises every day, basically sucks his dick for breakfast. Nice. So I think, don't get me wrong, I think he will he's got a tough job on his hand at Chelsea now, because it's a very different task managing a team full of superstars than it is managing a team like Brighton, where you can build that ethos, and he's had time to build his own team. He's come in after a transfer window where Chelsea have spent £250 million, and he's signed none of those players. The only player he'd probably have is Cucurella, obviously, from his time at Brighton. So I'll be interested to see how they get on now going forward, obviously, and Chelsea. But I completely agree with you on the Pope bandwagon. Like, he has been a breath of fresh air. That game he had against, was it Palace just before the break, or was it?
Yeah.
Was it Wolves? It was Palace, wasn't it? Because when they had the goal disallowed with VAR, oh my God. We could talk about VAR all day.
We're not going to make this a VAR podcast. What I loved about that game, though, was actually Nick Pope he made about 9 saves, but they were all, and we spoke about this a lot with Spurs last year, but all of the saves he made were from low XG shots. I think that Newcastle defence, and you know how much I love my XG, but that Newcastle defence are keeping teams to low XG shots. What does that mean for us as FPL players? That means that Nick Pope is still going to make a hell of a lot of saves like he did at Bournemouth. It means that Newcastle are still very good for clean sheets, 3 and 6. So I think he is, assuming a lot of people are on the wild cards, I am at the moment, Nick Pope is the 100% best option. And it almost doesn't matter who he plays. He is a set and forget keeper for the season. I am fully on the Nick Pope bandwagon, and he should be starting 100% of the World Cup as well.
Yeah, the latest England squad hasn't even been announced yet, has it? I haven't seen it, but bearing in mind we're going into an international break next week. I thought maybe it's being announced today or tomorrow as we record this on Thursday. I guess I'll wait and see later today. I might look it up in a minute. But yeah, I think he definitely should be in that squad. He probably should be starting over Pickford. Pickford's injured at the moment as well anyway, isn't he? So he's going to be missing this international break. And it's going to be between Pope and Ramsdale, but I think Pope gets the shout for me. And also, now is probably the time to be doubling up on Newcastle defence, I think. So we've got Pope, you could have Trippier, you could have Target, like you can have 2 of them. You could even have throw in Share if you wanted to, but always go for a wing back if you can, especially with Trippier's set pieces.
Yeah, we'll talk about teams in a minute. But one thing you mentioned before was Graham Potter leaving Brighton and going to Chelsea. That's actually a really nice place to start, because this podcast, we're going to be looking forwards and looking at the next, up until game week 16, essentially, because for those that don't know, game week 16 is the last game week before the World Cup starts. When the World Cup starts, you get unlimited transfers, meaning that the optimal time to play a wildcard is over the next couple of weeks. I guess there's an argument for saving it for game week 13 or so, just because then you've essentially got 2 weeks of free hits. But I think, assuming your squad is where everyone else's is, this is the time to have a bit of fun, because you have got an instant get out of jail free card in 7-8 weeks or so. So, considering a lot of people are going to be on a wild card at the moment, let's talk about Chelsea. Potter moving to Chelsea, I think the first thing he's going to be doing is sorting out their defence and reorganising their defence. What that means is that we could see a return for Ben Chilwell, which I'm really excited for the prospects of. I love Ben Chilwell, as do you. Cucurella, who knows about his minutes, but considering he's competing with Chilwell, although he does know Potter. And Reece James, does Potter's defensive solidity mean Reece James moves permanently to a right centre-back role? That's a big question mark for me. So though I think the defence will get better, I'm not sure. I think they're still a wait and see for me. Is there anyone you're looking to jump in? Or if you were on a wild card, would there be anyone you'd be rushing in?
No, not really. It's so hard when a new manager comes in. Obviously, we got the first glimpse of his sort of ideas and tactics last night. They only got a 1-1 draw, which they will be very disappointed about, bearing in mind that means they're now on 1 point from 2 group games in the Champions League, and that's going to be a real struggle for them and they're bottom of their group now. But I think Cucurella is the one to watch. Like you said, knows Potter from his time at Brighton, so it's probably an easy in for Potter to someone that knows his style and knows the way he wants to play already. Obviously, Chelsea play with this back 3-5, whatever you want to call it. He wasn't one for that at Brighton too much. It was more of your back 4. So it's really hard to know what they're going to do. Going forward, you're probably going to assume that Lynn's going to be in there. He's probably the one that people are looking at, scored their goal last night. But again, I'm not in any rush. It looks like last night he played with the back 4 of James, Azpilicueta, Silva and Cucurella. So whether that's a sign of things to come going forward, it's a 4-2-3-1, back to his sort of standard tactics at Brighton. Havertz played in the 10 behind Aubameyang, with Sterling and Mount either side. So, and they can all sort of interchange in those positions behind, really. So it's really hard to see. I'd wait for a couple of games. But I think Reece James is always your solid pick, and he's probably going to be playing. He's probably going to be getting forward quite a bit. He will make chances. He'll try and get on the end of balls that come over from the opposite flank. So I wouldn't be rushing anyone in, though, if I didn't already have them.
Yeah, and going forward, I think the only players you know are going to start are going to be Sterling and Mount, because they're just better than everyone else in that squad. But Potter could see a revival for Pulisic. He could see a revival for Ziyech. So the other slots, you just don't really know where they're going to be. So I think with Potter coming in, Chelsea are a bit of a wait and see. And if you look at their fixtures as well, looking even over the next 5 or so, the next one is a blank. So game week 8 is a blank. Then they've got Palace away, Wolves at home, Villa away, Brentford away, Man U away, and Brighton away. So Palace away, I think is a tough fixture. After that, they get a lot easier. So I think we can afford to wait until game week 10 or so before we really have to make a decision on Chelsea.
That trip to Brighton will be a fun one for Potter, won't it?
Oh, that's going to be brutal. Shall we talk then about... I mean, we've had the Salah discussion, so let's cover Liverpool quickly because their fixtures are turned. They've got a blank in the coming game week this weekend. Then it's Brighton, Arsenal, City, West Ham, 4 in a row. So I'm on a wild card at the moment. I've only got 1 Liverpool in there. You, I think, still have 2, 3. So I'd love to get your perspective on what you're thinking of, except for Salah, Liverpool assets at the moment.
Well, I have 2 as it stands, which are Trent and Diaz. And giving you my current thoughts moving forward, I've got 2 free transfers this week, which is enough to get me 12 playing players if I take 2 players out, which will probably be Diaz and Trent because I'm looking at wildcarding next week anyway. So at that point, I can reassess them and I can get whoever I want back in. I'll probably keep Diaz because I think he is a bargain entry into that Liverpool front line. And it seems as though he is playing most games. So I don't think he's much of a rotation risk at the moment. And I think he's probably been Liverpool's most dangerous attacking player this season, other than the Firmino 2 goals, 3 assists, or whatever it was. Absolute freak. Yeah, so that was just an absolute madness of a fixture, which won't be repeated anytime soon. So
Scott Parker effect, that was.
yeah. So I think I'll probably bring one back in. I'll probably bring Trent back in as well, to be honest with you, just because long term he's probably going to come good. So I think he's the way to go. But just Liverpool look leaky at the moment. It's really hard to see him keeping a clean sheet, but you're banking on attacking returns for Trent.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Trent can pick it up versus the weaker teams as well. Even if Liverpool concede 2 goals, you wouldn't rule out Trent also getting a goal and an assist. So I think he is probably still the best attacking fullback in the league. But obviously it's a really, really congested area. I've still got Trent. Trent, for me, is a permanent fixture no matter what, who he's playing. He's always just going to be in my fantasy football squad. But I don't have Salah or Diaz at the moment. Diaz is interesting because we'll come to West Ham next. I've got Bowen at the moment, even though his form has been shocking, on the basis of the next 4 fixtures look really good. And then when West Ham's turn bad again, Liverpool's turn good again. So I'm looking at doing a bit of an interchange between Bowen and Diaz. You've watched West Ham a lot more closely. I've currently got 2 players in my wildcard squad. So talk to me about West Ham at the moment. What your thoughts are, who you would be bringing in, who you hate, who is a shit player that should never play, Antonio. So give me your thoughts.
Antonio, I tell you what, in our last Europa Conference League game, which was the last game we played last Thursday, Antonio came on in the second half and changed the game. He was like his Antonio of old. He was bullying the defence. He was running past them, making things happen, got a goal and an assist. So, but he obviously, with the international break coming up, he's been called back into that Jamaica squad and he'll be getting back late from international duty. So he probably won't start that next game, which will be Wolves at home. Other than that, Bowen is obviously always a good shout. It looks as though he is on penalty duty now as well because he took our penalty in the Europa Conference League game. And he scored it, which is a breath of fresh air for a West Ham player taking a penalty. And the other person I'm keeping a very close eye on is Luca Paqueta. I've said it before in this podcast. I'll say it again. I think he's an absolute class player. He's slotted straight into that team. It looks as though Moyes is going to be starting him in that sort of 3 behind whoever's playing up front. So he's the one I'll be watching. And I think we have improved quite a lot in recent weeks. We were very unlucky not to get a point at Stamford Bridge because of an absolute horror VAR show again. I think in general, we are looking better. So if someone can pick up form, like you say, these next 4 games are key. And Bowen, it wouldn't surprise me if it's him. It wouldn't surprise me if it's Paqueta, even potentially Antonio and or Scamacca, whoever's playing. But I don't know. I still wouldn't back as much defensively at the moment other than maybe like your bit of bench fodder.
Yeah, West Ham's next 4, by the way, are Everton, Wolves, Fulham and Southampton. So a really nice quartet of fixtures. Honestly, with a lot of teams blanking next week, I've got Kurt Zuma starting in the next game week. But realistically, 90% of weeks he's going to be bench fodder. It's just because I needed a 4.5 and I needed a 4.5 who played this week. And I thought, why not give Zuma a go? Looking at other teams then, because there's another team that we're all invested quite heavily in, and we spoke about them before, which is Arsenal, all have been invested heavily in. They've done well for all of us. What are your thoughts on them moving forward? Because the fixtures aren't particularly nice at the moment. They're not looking very appealing.
No, Brentford, Spurs and Liverpool in the next 3, none of which are an easy game. And then they, of course, now blank in 12 because their PSV fixture's been rearranged. So, and either side of that, they fixtures get a little bit easier again. So it's really hard looking from like a wildcard perspective now, for example. I think you want to probably move away from 3 Arsenal. You might want to keep Jesus, but obviously there's a lot of attacking options at the moment. You've got Haaland, you've got Mitrovic, you've got, like, if you wanted Isak, who I've got from Newcastle, I think looks very good. There are a lot of options in to fill in that front 3, and it depends if you're going for a front 3 or a front 2. So that's a really tricky debate you've got to have. I will probably, on my wild card, I might think about moving away from Jesus depending on how he gets on this weekend. I've still got Ødegaard, I've still got Zinchenko. I'd like to keep an Arsenal midfielder. I might move away from Ødegaard to Martinelli, for example, but it's really hard. What are you thinking with yours?
Yeah, so I've had Martinelli all year, and I had Jesus for ages until I brought him out for Isak last week, or the last time we actually had a game week. But yeah, I'm on wildcard at the moment. Martinelli's going nowhere for me. I don't care how bad the fixtures are. In my opinion, he is worth his weight in gold, and I would argue he and Haaland are the only players in FPL that are essential. I think Martinelli is that good at the moment. So I really, really like the idea of keeping Martinelli regardless of the fixtures. Brentford, I'll probably play him. Tottenham and Liverpool, I'll probably bench him. He's 6.2 million, so you can get away with benching him. Maybe I don't against Liverpool, actually, because our defence is at the moment.
If he's playing on that left against Trent.
Oh, goodness me. Depends who's lining up with Trent, to be honest, because if it's Joe Gomez, then Martinelli is going to have an absolute field day. But I really do like Martinelli. He's staying for me. Gabriel Jesus is out. It's very much a thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Goodbye. There's so many good striking options. We're looking at Isak. We're looking at Ivan Toney. We're looking at Mitrovic. Then you've got Kane. You've got Haaland. There are so many great striking options at the moment that it's very difficult to justify keeping Gabriel Jesus. Where I'll probably bring him in again is game week 13 because they play Southampton, then Nottingham Forest. And Gabriel Jesus versus Nottingham Forest at home, that's a captaincy if I ever saw one. I mean, City are playing Leicester, but I would still probably fancy Jesus over Haaland then. So that's where I am with Arsenal, just keeping Martinelli and holding for the moment. Other than that, I'm not particularly interested in any of them.
Fair enough. And you haven't had Zinchenko at all, have you? So no. You haven't got to worry about that one.
I missed out on him in the first couple of games when I really should have had him. Let's talk about another team that we love and we've mentioned before, Newcastle. So we've been saying it all year. We love Newcastle, the way they're set up. Eddie Howe's been brilliant. Since he took over, it's only Liverpool and City that have got more points than Newcastle. I don't even know if Liverpool have at this point, to be honest. But yeah, they're just a really, really well-built team and squad. And they could legitimately knock on the door of top four this year. Maybe I'm overthinking this. But Nick Pope, we've justified. Kieran Trippier, I think we need to be getting in, particularly with the next three fixtures of Bournemouth, Fulham and Brentford. You've got Isak at the moment. Anyone else you're looking into?
Yeah, I mean, I'm tripled up, so I'm all in on the Newcastle train at the moment, and that probably won't change on this wild card because even after that, the three fixtures are United, Everton, and Spurs, all of which, like, you can see them picking up points. I know United are in very good form at the moment, but I mean, Newcastle went and drew 3-3 with City, so they are playing a very good style of football. The other one that obviously people will want to keep an eye on is St. Maximin. He's injured at the moment. Will he be back fit after the international break? Probably. Might even be fit for this weekend. So it's a race against time for him. But I mean, I would love to get him in because he's just such an exciting footballer. We've said many times on here how fun he is to watch as a neutral. So if he's fit and firing like he has been, then he's definitely one to keep an eye on. I just can't fit him in because I'm tripled up elsewhere. I'd have to drop, probably Isak would be the one I'd drop, but I think he is class and I think he will score a lot of goals.
Yeah, I love Isak. And actually, I've got St. Maximin in my wildcard drafts at the moment. But Isak is just as good an option. The one thing with Isak, though, is when Wilson is back from injury, does Isak automatically start? They spent a lot of money on him. But I'm not sure he's the automatic first choice. I'd be interested if they are looking to potentially switch to a 2 up front, how that could work as well.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, if they do start Wilson, it's only a matter of time before he gets injured again and then Isak's back anyway. So
yeah, totally. Other teams that we can look at investing in, one is Spurs, actually, who I like the look of at the moment. They've got Leicester at home next. Leicester bottom of the league, an absolute state. I brought Harry Kane in and I've actually got my captain's armband on him at the moment. That might swap over, actually. I might go Kane to Son, just so I can bring in an Isak. Potentially, I'm considering that move. Isak over Alan St. Maximin, depending on the St. Max injury news, I could go for Swingman Son, especially as he's now playing further forward than Kane again, which he hasn't for the first 6 games or so. He was in Champions League. What are your thoughts on Spurs, though, at the moment? I know you're not really invested, right?
At the moment, I have 0 Spurs players. That might change this weekend for my one-off hit, just because of the fixture, as you say. I tell you who I will not be bringing in, and that is still Heung-min Son. I am still very much avoiding him. Wouldn't touch him with a barge pole at the moment, despite the Champions League game in midweek. Like you say, playing further up, but still got nothing. So even as bad as Leicester have been at the moment, I'm still not backing Son. And I think we spoke about this before. Harry Kane has scored more Premier League goals against Leicester than he has against any other side in the Premier League. So I think if you're going to be having anyone this weekend, Kane is the one to go with, and the armband is a good shout. And obviously, then you've got their defenders, the wing backs, but there's the rotation risk with Perisic, with Sessegnon, with Emerson, who I think may be coming into my team for a one-off hit this weekend, just as a bit of a punt. But
he was so bad though. Like I don't even know if he starts because he was so bad midweek.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Does Sessegnon come in? Does Doherty come in on that right hand side? It's really hard to predict, which is the issue with Spurs wingbacks this season because they've got so many of them.
Yeah, I mean, if we knew Perisic was starting, then that's an absolute goldmine versus Leicester. But I'm not certain he's going to be starting, which is a real frustration. What other teams do we care about then? Obviously, City, we've all got Cancelo, we've all got Haaland. I'm not sure there is a case for KDB. And I'm saying that because 1 million doesn't get you very far in FPL this year. KDB is 12.1, Salah is 12.9. Salah is still a better option than KDB in FPL, in my opinion. KDB is playing a little bit further back in Pep's new system. It tends to be the two either side of him that go forward and provide for Haaland. I think KDB is a strictly worse option than Mo Salah on paper at the moment. And arguably even than Heung-min Son on paper at the moment, considering where on the pitch they're playing. Fight me. Go.
So obviously I said about my 2 hits my 2 free transfers this week. De Bruyne's going to be one of them in for Diaz because I've got that money in the bank. So as a one-off, I might as well do it.
This is going to be a Matt Higgins brings in some illogical player and then they absolutely go wild, isn't it?
Probably, and I can only hope so. Maybe I'll just captain him as well, just to really piss you off.
I mean, if you captain him and you bring him in, he's going to go absolutely wild, 100%. I'd probably find a way to get him in and go 3 million.
So what you're saying is triple captain De Bruyne this week, yeah?
Yeah, please do.
But yeah, so he's going to be one of mine. Obviously, Cancelo and Haaland are in there already. So the option is, do you want another City player? I don't think any of their other real midfielders are a particularly great shout. The only one that's really done anything so far this season is Gundogan. So if you wanted him in there, you can bring him in. But I think there's other better options in that price range. So I think the 2 to go with long-term are Cancelo and Haaland.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Am I missing out any other teams that are worthwhile investing in from if you're on a wildcard perspective? I guess after the Man United performance, you'd look at Rashford, but they're blanking this game week. Then the next week is City away. Then they've got Everton away, which is an easy game, but then it's Newcastle and Tottenham. So the fixtures really aren't great for United.
And then Chelsea as well. So
yeah, they're really, really tough run. So I would. They did well versus Arsenal, but I'd hesitate to bring them in. So we haven't spoken about that yet, that we need to speak about seriously. Fulham. Their next game is Nottingham Forest. And oh my God, Mitro on fire. Every defence is terrified. Mitrovic is arguably, Haaland aside, the standout striker this year so far in the Premier League.
Yeah, he's had more shots than any other player in the Premier League this season, which is obviously a good sign. If you get more shots, you've got more chances of scoring. I mean, obviously, everyone speaks about Haaland, and rightly so, but Mitrovic is he's not gone under the radar because most people are talking about him, but he's just plugging away, doing his thing, banging in goals. We said at the start of this season, we both said it, with the right manager, which Marco Silva seems to be for him, he will get you goals in the Premier League. So with those fixtures coming up as well, like you look at their next sort of 7 fixtures, there's not a red one in there. The hardest is probably Newcastle at home. But other than that, potentially West Ham away, I don't know. Depends how we're playing at that point. But in that period as well, they play Forest, they play Bournemouth, they play Villa, they play Everton. Like, that is, if you're wildcarding, I think you've got to be getting Mitrovic in.
Yeah, Mitrovic and Andreas as well. Best 4 point.
Potentially.
He's a must-have, in my opinion. He's
such an enabler.
4.5 enabler that's getting points. He's I think on 3 assists and 1 goal for the league so far this season in 6 games, which is mental for a 4.5 enabler. He's got more points than Bowen, than like a lot of other 8.0, far more points than Mount. So I think in terms of value for money, Andreas Pereira is a must-have, and the next game's Nottingham Forest. You've got to be bringing him in.
The only problem you've got with someone like him is you're going to be erring on the side of benching him every week. So you could potentially leave a lot of points on the bench. But you'd probably have him in one of your early bench slots and you might get him in and you might get lucky like that. So, yeah, I think if you like 4.5 midfielders are incredibly valuable to a team to enable you to invest money elsewhere. And he's one that's playing 90 minutes pretty much every week and picking up points. So if you don't have him, you're wildcarding, he is almost one of the first names on your 11. Well, 15, sorry.
One other team that you're going to laugh at me so much, but I think is worthy of discussion, is Aston Villa. And Leon Bailey is now at 4.7, so he's in the same bracket as Andreas. I think you could go a lot worse because he's going to be starting in one of those forward positions, and their next games are Southampton, Leeds, Nottingham Forest. Then they've got Chelsea, admittedly, but after that it's Fulham and Brentford. I do think Leon Bailey is a genuine good shout if you're buying him now. He's had the price falls, so he's at 4.7. He could start picking up some really good returns. So I really like Leon Bailey in that bracket as well as a potential option. I don't have him at the moment, but looking at those fixtures, it's very much on the cards and very much on the table for me. Are you going to tell me I'm crazy?
I'm not going to tell you you're crazy. I don't think I'd be doing it myself, just because, although, Villa got that point against City before. I feel like I keep feeling like saying the break, but just before we last spoke, like it just seems so long ago. I don't fancy him enough. Overall, this season they've been a poor side, and one good performance doesn't fill me with enough confidence to go for someone like him, regardless of him getting a goal against a very good side.
I mean, you can make the same argument for Jared Bowen, but I've got him in my side for double the price.
Here we are.
Here we are. Okay, fair enough. I think it's an option. I probably won't do it. I'll probably chicken out, but I just want to highlight that he's a really good option in that price bracket at the moment. From my perspective, there's no other teams really worth talking about at the moment. Anyone else you want to dig into?
No, so the only ones you obviously mentioned were Man U, because they are in good form, but they blank. Then it's City, and I feel like there's not really enough to talk about there because, again, they've only had a few good games. But Rashford is a potential one to look at in the coming weeks. Brighton have obviously had a very good start to the season, but again, they blanked this weekend. Then it's Liverpool. They've got a new manager, so a lot of upheaval there. Bournemouth have got good fixtures, but they're Bournemouth. So Palace in the next few weeks, they blank then Chelsea, and then they've got a good run of fixtures. Will Zaha, anyone?
I mean, there are crazier choices. Okay, talk me through what your game week plan is then. What does your team look like and what's it going to look like for this week?
So, my current 11, before I've made any changes, which is 10, is Pope in goal, Cancelo, Zinchenko, and Trippier as a back three, Pereira, Jensen, Erdegaard, and currently Luis Diaz, who's not playing, and then Isaac, Haaland, and Jesus. So I'm thinking Diaz and Trent out, KDB and a defender in. So that will probably leave me. I'll probably bench Jensen as my first sub, and I'll bring in KDB and another defender into that starting 11. Who that's going to be, I'm still so torn. I really am weighing up the pros and cons of a Spurs defender, risk of rotation, or do I just go for someone a little bit more is going to start?
You go for Eric Dyer.
No, I don't. Although he's Spurs' top scoring defender this season.
I mean, I'm just saying it. Eric Dyer could be a really no, he could not be a fun option.
He's not going to be fun at all. He might get you points, but it won't be fun.
Yeah, and I think I'm wildcarding, and honestly, I haven't been enjoying FPL so much this season because I've been very template, and it's not really felt like it. It's not really felt like it was me playing. It felt like I was following the crowds a little bit. So I've wildcarded this week, and I've just gone, okay, what players do I like? What teams do I like? Rank almost doesn't matter. I just want to have fun because if I see these players do well and they're in my FPL team, it's going to make me really happy. So Pope is never going anywhere. I love him. And his next game is Bournemouth. So I've got my 11 for next week is Pope, then 3 at the back, Trippier, Cancelo, and Zuma. Then 4 across the middle, which is Andreas, Bowen, Martinelli, and St. Max. Then up top, I've got Mitrovic, Haaland, and Kane with the armband. St. Max is 50% to start this game week. I really hope he does. If not, then I might have to change the team around somewhat to get 11 starting players. On my bench, I've got Tyrick Mitchell, Trent, and Rashford. Not opposed to dropping Trent for another starting player that I can bench or even have over Zuma, potentially. Maybe a Diaz for City or something like that. But we'll wait and see.
I have a question for you. Mm-hmm. Am I crazy for considering putting the armband on Isak this week?
No, I was actually thinking about putting it on Mitrovic.
That's not a bad shout either.
Forest. I think that could be really fun. If you don't have Kane and you want to differentiate from Haaland, you could have some real fun this week with Newcastle playing Bournemouth at home and Fulham playing Forest away. Both of them are really good options. Mitrovic has been outscoring or getting the same scores as Kane all year, for example. So he's a great shout. Isak is really bold, but could be really fun. So I don't hate it at all.
My worry is like it's currently on Haaland because, of course, it is. Played 90 last night. They play again Saturday lunchtime. Is there that rotation risk that we all have been talking about? And then it goes on to an international break.
There is no rotation risk at all. He's 22 years old. Like, it's still early in the season. They didn't have a game last weekend. No, there's not a rotation risk with Haaland.
The other thing I was going to say is Wolves are quite stingy defensively in general. They struggled to break down a Dortmund side last night that aren't the greatest defensively, but then he came up with that karate kick goal, which was just absolutely insane.
Yeah, and the point is, it's Haaland. However, if he gets a goal, say City win 1-0, Haaland gets 9 points. So 9 doubled is 18. Kane versus Leicester could get 2 goals. You could see it happening quite easily. Mitrovic versus Forest could easily get a hat-trick. Isak versus Bournemouth could get 10 goals for all we bloody know. So I don't... The point is, Haaland is a brilliant option for captaincy, but he's not the only option. And if there's a player that could do better than him and you go with him, the reward is brilliant. If you've got a player that does slightly worse than Haaland and everyone else is captain's Haaland, then it's not going to be as big a gap as you think to catch up. So I think there's a more risk-reward scale. It's a good week to not captain Haaland.
So what I'm understanding from this is Haaland's going to score a hat-trick again.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Cool. That's where we are with our teams at the moment. Now, I'm on a wild card, so I might chop and change a little bit still. But I'm very much looking forward to FPL being back again this weekend. You're probably going to be texting me loads and loads of abuse throughout the weekend as my team stutters and fails. So really not looking forward to that element. But otherwise, we're all looking forward.
It's great as well because cricket season's obviously over now. I can sit down on a Saturday, watch as much football as I'm allowed, which is not a lot. It'll be one of those. There'll be something else on the TV, and I'll have like on my laptop or something watching the games. And most of the games are on TV this weekend now. With the blanks, there's only 2 of the actual games this weekend aren't on TV. So you've got Villa Southampton Friday nights on TV, Wolves City and Spurs Leicester on Saturday on TV, and then both Sunday games are on TV as well. So
2 Friday night games as well.
Yeah, it's a bit of a strange one, that.
Well, whenever there's a Friday night game, it typically means there's way more goals that game week. And the fact that there's 2, it's not a week to be backing big at the back. That's all I'm going to say. If you're one of these people that believes in fate, it's not a week to be backing big at the back.
Always big at the back. Big at the back for life.
Big at the back for life. Okay, how many defenders are you starting this week?
That's a trick question.
I mean, I'm starting 3. That's
so am I, but that is only because that's how many I've got available.
Fair enough. Well, we're looking forward to the football. We will look forward to catching up with you all next week. And Matt's going to give a much better dad joke than I improvised via Google with on the spot. Interact with us on Twitter. You can find us at Big at the Back.
Yeah, we can. We've been a bit quiet on there lately, but I think it will be picking it up again now that especially I finished cricket season. I can be there all day on Saturday. So we'll be a lot more active and involved. You can find me on Twitter at Higgins92. Tom is at TomMadden92. Of course, if you're listening to this on YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe. It would really help us out and it would mean a lot because we are a very small channel. Everything helps. And we're available on all your regular podcast platforms like Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts.
Awesome. Well, other than that, guys, have a fantastic game week. Can't wait to see all of your scores and to see you all get past Matt on the Big at the Back League. And we'll look forward to speaking to you all next week.